Hey everyone, I have a quick question for you. Do you struggle with trying to figure out the perfect balance between your digital life and maybe your analog, whether it's pen and paper, or whether it's something like an e-note device or an e-ink device like I use with the Supernote, and how you combine that with things you do on your PC, interesting ways of capturing notes that may be on the computer or somewhere else, maybe through your phone? In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to give you an answer to at least my workflow and the way that I do that using a program called Obsidian. And I'll show you a little bit more about how I've set up my workflow for that and what is going on with the Supernote and how that can integrate into that workflow. So I will see you here in just a minute.
All right, so here we are with our Obsidian vault, and what I wanted to show you first was what my vault looks like. I did want to kind of show you what a map that's been being worked on for the last 30 days can look like. And if you remember, and I'll link it down in the description, I did the early map of when I pulled in a few files, and I did that quick animation, and then I walked you all through kind of my thinking about Obsidian at the time. Now, what it's done since then is it has completely changed. I've refined the way I think about it, the way my file structure looks, the way my notes actually link, and I've watched and consumed quite a bit of content to make this happen. I'll link in the description to people like Nick Milo, Dan Berg, who've really talked about, kind of how you can think through this process if you're just getting started. But I wanted to share with you my workflow and the way that I do it because as we think about things on this channel, we think about organization. I just want to focus on two areas to show you kind of the power. So if you hold over this one right here, and Nick Milo and Dan Berg both talk a lot about map of contents because you can use this in several ways. One is called Zettelkasten, where it's all note related and links, and there's not necessarily a centralized place to have everything. I kind of use a hybrid approach, which is the map of contents here. You can see this maps to all kinds of different places. And what that means is there are a lot of different note links there. So if I do click here, and I can click this because it just shows a big overview, and you'll see all of the different pieces here that go to the different points on the Valpo website or individual contacts or committees. Now, when I come back to the map, sometimes they do move a few things. So you'll see the contents now, instead of being in the upper right, is back down on the other side. However, if you come over here, this is another hub. Center for Innovation in Teaching, Assessment, and Learning was under one of the schools and departments. That is here as well. And now you can see all of the connections that go to this. The graph view is very useful when it comes to identifying outliers. You can see up here, there are several things not connected. A lot of that has to do with I use Omnivore to be able to research articles to read later. And that's where I can go back and I can make those connections. Or if I've forgotten to connect something in a note or a note to a person, I can see these outliers and I can go back in and rectify that mistake. So the graph view, I don't use all the time. I don't go here to navigate for the most part, although occasionally I'll do what you just saw and I'll click into a particular node. But for the most part, and this is what I want to focus on today, I use a folder structure over here. Everything from attachments to personal sources, templates, and then you'll see Valpo, which is my work folder. I just wanted to show you this really quickly before we dive into the template I've kind of created for those of you who may want to download and start using Obsidian and looking at how you want to structure things. And again, this is the way I structure them. So I don't want you to think that, oh man, this doesn't work. Well, if it doesn't work, try something else. The nice thing about Obsidian and also Supernote is the fact that you have multiple ways of doing different things and approaching the way your workflow actually works. I am, just for full disclosure, and I'll go ahead and switch over to the template, but I'm using Obsidian Sync. Obsidian is 100% free. It's an open source product. You can download it, use it on your PC, and it works very well. Now, if you want to be able to sync those files across multiple PCs or your mobile device, Obsidian does offer a sync function, and there is a cost with that. It's very minimal, actually, to be able to sync all of these files. And I've tried just using OneDrive by itself, and it's very clunky, and the updating can cause some real problems. It can be done, so I basically do a hybrid approach. I put everything on OneDrive, but then I also go ahead and I purchase the sync function, which allows for double redundancy, for lack of a better term. So everything's stored on my personal OneDrive or my work OneDrive, and then it is moved end-to-end encryption to my other devices through the sync process. And this is a markdown file, so all of this is contained in folders in text format. So if you ever wanted to leave or go somewhere else or use another program, all of your information stays with you. And you can look at some of the other videos linked below to get even more information here on this left-hand side. And I've put in pretty much the same structure. Of course, I replaced Valpo with just university. I've included templates, and I've populated 3 files there. And if you click, you'll see these are note files. And then I've got a sources folder, and I've gone ahead and created 3 folders. And one way you can tell a folder from a file, here you'll see there's no arrow. Whether or not there's something in a folder, it automatically gets this arrow, which distinguishes it. Notes, on the other hand, get these uh, just words, and it also shows you last modified. If you hover over the folders, you'll see how many files and folders are in there, and you'll see there's nothing in there right now because obviously this is a template. You'll notice down here at the bottom, I created the university map of contents. And the map of contents is, for lack of that better term, kind of a landing page that you can have. And what you'll see here is very similar to what you saw in the other note. Now, the main difference here, I'm using the default theme, but this is in dark mode. I wanted to kind of have so you could see both ways of how this would work. And you'll see all of the different pieces here. I have an attachments folder with a Supernote folder to show you how you pull in a Supernote file. And then I've got personal. So and these will change based on the individuals. So I've got financial, letters, journals, notes, and then social media. All of that is included in this template that I will provide access to if you all would want to have something kind of to start you out of the box with. One thing that I wanted to show here is you can do a typed note, and I use the Supernote a lot, but there are some times when I'm at my computer and I may want to just type a quick note. You can actually create a note in any format. It automatically defaults to the date, but you can easily rename that, change it to something else, and then go ahead and get on with your day. And then you can delete it if you don't want to keep that there. But one thing I do want to show as well, so that's your daily note. You can insert a template directly from here. Of course, we don't want to do that right yet. We'll show that here in a minute. You can create a new canvas, which we're not going to cover here, but I do think it would be, it may be for a later video. I'm still working through how I'm going to use the canvas, and I don't want to kind of muddy the waters on this. And then, of course, you can always go back to that graph view, and you'll see there's really not much there. Let's go ahead and look at how you might build out some of this. First, what we're going to show you and go through is kind of how I would set up the top level of the organization. You'll see right now the only thing we have is the map of contents for the university. And one thing I did was I hid the templates folders so we wouldn't have multiples coming in, documents that are basically just templates kind of floating around in our map. And then that always seems to be an outlier. And what I do, and again, this is because my regular workflow is very much a folder driven structure. And it took me a while to figure out how that would translate into links. And it's not a one for one, but in some cases it is. So it's easy for me to be able to figure out how I can find this information, whether it's by looking through Obsidian, or even if I just want to go to Windows Explorer. Because one interesting component of this is, and you'll see a lot of other people use keyboard shortcuts. I'm a Windows guy, been a Windows guy for a long time. And for some reason, the mouse has just always been better for me. So I do a lot of right clicking. But you can always go here where it says show in system folder. And it popped up on the other screen. So let me pull it over. And now you'll see that everything is right here. The markdown files are your text files. You have all of your folders, and then your notes are going to be those markdown files. And if you go back, you'll see you can see all of it. So there are the templates. For major offices or for major departments, what I will generally do is have this upper level template, and then I will say, okay, provost and academic affairs, that will probably need its own department template. Here I want a new note, and that new note should be provost and academic affairs. And now I have that note right underneath here. Now I can put all kinds of other files that I need in there, and then I can link those from wherever I am in the system. But it's really important that I know I can go here both as a file structure and as a note to be able to take a look at this. What's cool about this is now I can say I want this to be a school or department template. So it will go back to what I did there. I click here. You can also open up the command palette. There are all kinds of keyboard shortcuts. Again, it's really about how you want to engage the system. I just click the insert template. It takes me to my template folder. I say school or department, and then here we go. Now I have all of the major headings. I can put in the leadership, which will probably be the provost, and the associate or assistant provosts, maybe some academic deans, depending on the structure of your university. Or if you're using this in the business case, you would just rename this to match the structure that you're using. Here I would say who the leadership is, and we're going to create someone. And this is where I'll show you kind of the power. So I don't have to go to the contacts folder to create this person. I can actually do that from anywhere in Obsidian. What I'll do, and it's a double bracket, and you'll see it drops down with things that have already been created. But I'm going to put Joe Smith. And if there's no match found, you can actually just hit enter, and that'll complete it for you. If it does pull up something and doesn't say no match found, you have to be careful and you have to actually hit the brackets twice. Now, what's interesting about this is that's created, but there's nothing associated to it yet. What I have to do if I want to from here, or I can wait till later, but I can click on Joe Smith and you'll see now that's popped up. And here is where you can create that new contact. And I can go ahead and say, I want this to be a professional contact from our institution. I click. Now here you go. And this is going to be the provost. We're going to call our institution, let's just do it, Change University. And we're going to say that this is Provost and Academic Affairs. We will put in joe at change.edu. We're not going to go ahead and put in a phone number, but we could say related groups. Let's say there was a special group that this person was belonged to. We could go ahead and put that in there. We could put in some important notes, and then we can also tie meetings, and we can say these are the meetings that this person was connected to, whether one-on-one or group meetings, and then that begins to create those connections. Now, when we go back to our graph, you can see that we've got Provost and Academic Affairs, we've got Joe Smith, and what we haven't done, this shows you that connection. Under Administration, we did not have Provost and Academic Affairs. When we go here, now if we go back to the map, you'll see those first connections starting to form. It's really a powerful tool. So you can see that if we go from this map of contents, it's going to take us to Academic Affairs and the Provost, and then there's Joe Smith. It allows us to connect so many different things all at once. And if you look over here on the left, you'll see that Joe was created here. We can simply drag him up and put him in contacts. It doesn't change anything as far as the connections he has, but it puts now all of our contacts in one place, and we can continue to add there. Now, again, you can go through and create contacts first and then go back and add them in using that double bracket and have all their information automatically link, or you can create them as you go. I found it a lot easier to create them as I go while I'm looking through a department or typing up my notes or moving things around so that they are in context. And then that way I can add everything as I'm creating that. But let's go ahead and we'll create a new contact. And let's say that this is going to be a faculty contact, and we will call this person Susie Smith, no relation. And we're going to say that this is a professional institutional contact as well. This is a professor, and let's just say of biology. The institution again, and you can actually go back into the template, and this is what I've done on my template, and this would say whatever your university is, and it would automatically populate. So again, change university. The department, let's say it's biology, and we're going to go ahead and create that. This is Susie at change.edu. Now, when we go back to that map of contents again, all of a sudden you see something hanging out here. You've got biology, which is going to show even though there's no content there. And then you've got the map of contents. If we go back to the map of contents, we can say, okay, there's administration. We can go to schools and departments. And we can say biology. Click there. Now, again, you're starting to see things connect. And then let's say we want to go ahead and create the biology department. We go back in to our template, school or department template, biology. Now we've already created Susie Smith, and there she is. It's a really fast and efficient way to connect all of your notes. Go back to that map of contents again, and now everything is connected. When you click here, you can see the direct connections to the map of contents, and then you can see the connections going back and forth from provost and biology. As meetings start to happen, these may connect provost to biology. Let's just take a look at that. Let's go and create a meeting, just a test meeting. So we'll create test meeting, or let's just say biology meeting. If it's underlined, that means it already exists. This means we're kind of telegraphing and saying this might exist. Now we have this meeting. Now, I didn't provide a meeting template because I think those really depend on what you want to have for the meeting. But let's say that you wanted something like attendees. You could say hashtag is your titles, and however many hashtags you put in is however many titles you'll have. But the difference between titles and tags is tags do not have a space, titles do. So if I hit space, then when I do this, it'll be attendees. And then I can actually say Joe was there and Susie was there. Now when I go back to my map, you can see those connections really starting to form. And then you'll see biology isn't connected yet. So if I go back to the biology department, I can actually put that same meeting in there. Now you'll see that that connection is all the way around. You can do the same thing here. Whenever you go into any of these profiles, you'll be able to see that these people are connected in some way. You won't see it on the map of contents because obviously that goes to everything around. But when you go back to that map of contents, that's where you'll see that upper level. For me, this was kind of another one of those aha moments, like with the Supernote of, wow, I can get myself out of my own distractions, out of my own head. And this kind of helped me do that. This idea of a second brain, of being able to really kind of offload some of the connections. And it's really changed the way that I approach being able to collaborate across campus and with people. The last thing that I want to show is the Supernote and how that would work into this structure. So what we'll do is we'll go into Attachments, Supernote, and then what I do is I'm going to open this Show in System Explorer. All right, so here we are we've opened up our folders in both Obsidian and in the Supernote with Windows Explorer. And this makes it a lot easier to move these files around. And we will copy our Supernote files and paste them directly into Obsidian. And once we do, we'll be able to go back and you'll see now that those are here in the left navigation. And what's really cool about this is now when you open this, you'll see two things. One, you'll see the image, and they've updated this so that you can see this in dark mode very well. You'll also see where it says page 1 recognized text. Now, if you had multiple pages, you would see page 2, page 3, and it would go on and on. And this collapses, but you can uncollapse it. You can also go in and make it so it doesn't collapse in the first place, but that can make it very long when you pull in like larger documents. But now what we want to do is you can't edit this. So I can't edit this text. I can select it, but I can't do anything with it. Instead, what you want to do is, or at least what I do, you can take either just the attached markdown, so that's this text here, or you can go ahead and add the markdown and image. So it really depends on your preference there. I tend to do the image and the markdown. When I do that, you'll see that there's now a created test note over here. Now I can edit this. It gives me the page as a heading. I can leave that there, or I can change it however I want. I can double check and make sure that all of this was correct and do some reformatting if I want to. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. And you can see it got most of this very right. The main difference is it didn't get design right, and it's not going to find that as the correct thing. But I can quickly change that over. And then there's some capitalization things it missed. But for the most part, it got this correct. And it gave me my image directly in line. I can do this on the Provost test note as well. Attach a markdown. You'll see it's a test note as well. I can actually type in and say it's the provost, so we know that's Joe Smith. And we go down and we tag Joe Smith here. Let's go ahead and do Susie here. Now, when we go back to that map, you now see when you go to Joe, you see that not only did he have the test note that we just did and the biology meeting and where he reports to. the biology meeting here, because we didn't meet with the whole provost and academic affairs. It wasn't a general meeting with another group. It was just with us. It's not going to show the provost note. There was just a meeting with us. And with Susie, you'll see the same thing. One thing that you do want to do to be able to make this work is to install that community plugin. So if you go to the settings tab down here on the left and you go to community plugins, you will have to enable those first. But once you do, then you can go to browse and you can type in Supernote, and there it is. It's the unofficial plugin. There's also another way you can do it if you want to be on the beta. I'll include instructions to all of that below. One last thing real quick that I do want to show is how the sync works. Now again, this has to be done if you are working with Obsidian Sync. So it is a paid service. It's well worth the investment to do this, because one thing that's really always important to me is this idea of being flexible and being able to use the right tool for the right job. All right, so here we are, and you can see over on the left, we have our file structure, and then on the right, this is the screencast of my phone. You'll see that that's replicated. So you'll be able to see all of the different things here as well if you go through. You can also add folders here. You can add notes directly from here. When you have the sync feature, you can actually have up to 10 vaults. I personally use one, and I just hide my personal folder at work so that I'm not bombarded with personal stuff, but then I can still go in and find that information if I need it. And then I keep both work and personal visible at home. That's it. I will see you in just a minute.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for hanging in there with me through that video. Hopefully you found it informative, and maybe you picked up a trick or two, a tip or two on how you would use this same workflow or maybe use this software. One thing I really enjoy about Obsidian is the fact that it's open source and you can do a lot of different things with it. I also enjoy very much that it directly kind of works with the Supernote and the way I take notes, but then it also has the flexibility. If I want to take a digital note or add a digital item, I can do that really easily and still connect those things all together. Again, I've been using Obsidian about a month, so my workflow is constantly evolving and changing, just like it has with the Supernote over the years. We'll keep this conversation going. Please drop in the comments your own workflows, what you find interesting, what you find valuable about Obsidian if you've used it, or whether you're not sure if you should. And the same with the Supernote. I learned so much from us engaging through the comments that I can't even begin to describe that. So it's really great. Anyway, again, like, subscribe, tell all your friends, and I will see you next time. Just remember, if you want to be an agent of change, all you have to do is bring yourself, your voice, and your perspective to the table.